What are the things you want to kind of do to create a podcast that's engaging?
The three things you want to focus on, your currency in podcasting and kind of content in general, you want to focus on humor, emotion, vulnerability, the sort of emotional element of things, and then insight. If you're going to focus on insight, the insight needs to be counterintuitive in some way.
Hello, founders and small business leaders. Kenan Rappuchi here, founder and chief growth officer of Accelerant, your business growth ally, here with another episode of Revenue Recipe. Now, here's the twist. We flip seats. I'm actually going to be the host. It's normally, who is now my guest today, Mr. Ben Wiggins. How you doing?
Doing great, Kenan. Good to be here.
Good to have you, my friend. So you're going to have to be patient with me here because this is the first time I've hosted. You're normally the stud that does that, where I get to be the honored guest to talk about all the stuff I know. But today we're going to talk about something that Ben knows, and Ben is an absolute guru at. Before we get into it, Ben, I'll let everyone know, if you're thinking about podcasting, you need to be doing it. Because without question, podcasting is the most effective channel to connect with your audience in a way that is human, is real, and delivers credibility and humanity and messaging in a way that engages an audience like nothing else. So, Ben, I'm going to ask you to tell the audience about your background. I'm going to give them a little tweak about Hollywood. So why don't you fill that in a little bit?
Sure. So I got my start in Hollywood and moved out to Los Angeles in 2008 and was there for just shy of 8 years. Sold a few screenplays, wrote for some TV, did some independent film production, from independent film producing. But then that also launched and hosted and produced 2 podcasts while I was in LA. And we had a few thousand listeners. Listenership and viewership was a little bit easier to come by then. But then launched a show with Texas A&M University in 2018 called the Maze Mastercast after having moved back to Texas. And that show became the impetus for Podcast Architects and Proclaim, which was recently acquired by Accelerant. Thank you. What happened was we launched this show for Texas A&M, and then right away, people around the university ecosystem started reaching out to me and to my producing partner and saying, "Hey, we know a podcast is really important. We've wanted to have this kind of media brand for a while, and we don't know what to do. Can you help us get started?" And the first 2 or 3 times we said, "Sure, we'd love to help you. We would come talk to you. Like, we love podcasting. Let's just sit around and shoot the bull." And after this had happened 12 times, we looked at each other and thought, I think the market might be speaking to us. Mm-hmm. So turns out we were right about that. What we were completely wrong about was what the business model should be. So we started it as a consulting firm. But then, we flipped it to more of a full service model. And that's when the business started to grow.
Amazing. So thanks for that story. And let me be candid. Obviously, Accelerant's all in on podcasting. And one of the biggest developments that we've had as a company, probably the sole biggest development, was the strategic initiative we took together to become one company under the Accelerant brand.
Yes.
Because the one thing Accelerant did not do until July 1st of this year was podcasting. And we knew that we needed to have that in our fold and have the best at it. So that's why we have you here today. So today's episode of the Revenue Recipe is about podcast fundamentals for founders. What if you're a founder and I got to get podcasting, what do I do? That's question one. How do I get started? What's the first thing I need to do?
Well, if you've got budget for it, you need to call Accelerant Podcasting.
Okay.
But if you don't have budget, then what you do, everybody always wants to know about the gear.
Sure.
And so we'll talk a little bit about the gear. First thing you need to do is just go buy a USB cardioid mic, the microphone that can hook directly into your computer, laptop or desktop, and then get yourself, just earbuds or a headset. If you've got a gaming headset or something like that, that can function as kind of your headphones, because it's a more immersive experience if you have, earbuds or headphones for the audio. And then all you really need after that is a computer with a webcam. Most of them have a webcam these days, and a recording service. We prefer to use Riverside.fm. There's other good ones out there. The Riverside doesn't sponsor our content or anything like that. That's just a service that we like. And you can optionally get yourself a ring light if you want one. But that's a very good DIY setup just to get you going. just like with anything else in foundership, go get started. Go be bad. Like go be bad fast so you can be good a little bit.
break and move fast.
Exactly.
Right? Okay,
Exactly
gotcha.
it. Yeah, that's it.
So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, be a bit of a neophyte here. It doesn't probably cost a lot of money to
No.
get the gear,
No.
and the gear is probably fairly high quality.
Yes.
So that's good. So the first thing, you need the gear. Got to have that because there's got to be audio and video quality, all that. Okay. So you got the gear. What the hell do you talk about? How do you create a strategy or an execution plan for a podcast? What are the key elements? What are the pillars that you need to figure out to create a podcast that's going to get you some engagement?
Yeah, so you usually start with the easiest way to start is with kind of a question and answer interview type of format. You usually need yourself. If it's going to be your show, like a show that is presented by your company, if you're a founder, then you're the host and you'll bring in various guests, your clients, your prospects. That's a great way to do it. Your partners, all of those kinds of things, people who are sort of in the ecosystem of your business. And I always like to start with the who. It's like who are the big priorities that you want to put on camera to talk to your core audience, to talk to other partners, for example, in the case of partners, other prospects, in the case of prospects, other clients. And you can have your employees on as well to kind of spotlight them and the value that they add. Once you have the who, then you can move to the what. And ChatGPT or something else can be very helpful to you in generating kind of a first set of questions. Here's the context for the interview. Help me come up with a few questions for this discussion. Eventually, you'll get to a spot where you can kind of move away from sort of the rote question and answer formatting. You'll get more comfortable with making it more conversational. But in the early going, that's fine. Like interview, question and answer format is great. And start with the who, then go to an AI service that can help you generate, just a first round of 5 questions, or even fewer if you're going really short form. 3 questions can be enough.
How long should a podcast episode be? I mean, a lot of people are talking about attention economy. How long is it going to make sense? How long will somebody stay tuned in? Is there a right length of a podcast episode?
Yeah, we find that shorter than 25 minutes is usually good. Definitely shorter than 42 minutes for sure. And there's kind of a sort of a medium form window that can work really well. And then there's kind of a short form window that works really well. For the medium form, 18 to 25 minutes, I find is really good. That usually thrives on YouTube and it thrives on traditional podcasting channels. Put the video on your website, put some, cut some clips if you've got budget for that, put those on your, your LinkedIn or your other socials. And then a short form window is like 9 to 12 minutes.
Gotcha. Okay. So it sounds like there's a couple different options and you sort of kind of work your content in. So what are the things to avoid? Or if you want to flip that question, what are the things you want to kind of do to create a podcast that's engaging? Are there tactics or something?
Yeah. So the 3 things you want to focus on, your currency in podcasting and kind of content in general, that you want to focus on humor, emotion, vulnerability, the sort of emotional element of things, and then insight. But if you're going to focus on insight, the insight needs to be counterintuitive in some way. And, in the early going on the Maze Mastercast, when I was, a little bit less experienced as a host on sort of professional content, we would get a lot of answers that were kind of down the fairway.
Right.
It was a lot of, show up early and work hard. Yeah, that's important, but everybody's heard it 1,000 times and they're clicking to the next thing.
Sure.
I've heard this 1,000 times already.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, the humor, some people, you don't worry about being funny if you're not funny. If you are funny, lean into that. And it's okay to show kind of that lighter side of you and the way you operate your business. I would say lean into that. Vulnerability, definitely lean into that. Like that, it's okay to tell the stories of when you didn't have the answers. People like that. They identify with it. The toughest one is making sure that the insight is that counterintuitive, that surprising. So the questions I always ask myself are, how can I twist this question in such a way that it will focus more on what subverts expectations, what is surprising, what is counterintuitive, what's recent? Like when I'm talking to, a 60-year-old professional, 50-year-old professional, I'll ask them, what's the most important thing you've learned about your job in the last 2 years? Because then you're not going to get show up early and work hard.
Sure.
You're going to get something that's very specific. You want to focus on that specificity that will help people have the reaction of, oh, I never thought about it quite like that before.
Got it.
So those are the three things: humor, vulnerability and emotion, counterintuitive insight.
Yeah. So really just be human and talk about things that are going to capture your interest if you were listening to an episode. Last question.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm doing some podcasting. I got Riverside. I hacked through it and figure out how to, do my captions or whatever. What do you call the subtitles, or what do you call the things on the podcast?
Yeah,
whatever they call it.
captions.
Yeah.
So
clearly I'm a neophyte, right?
One note on that is, so you want your podcast to live on YouTube, on your website.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Okay.
On your socials,
Okay,
if you can get the clips, and then on traditional podcast channels as well. It's usually pretty easy to shoot it on video. Always do video, and then you can strip out the audio pretty quickly. It'll only take a few seconds to do it.
Okay.
Put it on a service like Red Circle that will syndicate to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and so forth. So those are the places where the show should live. For the captions, for the socials assets, for the clips, if you're able to kind of trim out some short pieces and put those on socials, you want to bake the captions directly onto the video. Don't do that on YouTube though, or on your website. So do it on the clips and on your website.
Got it.
But on YouTube, don't do that, because YouTube has their own captioning.
Right.
You can end up with double captions.
Yeah, and they try to avoid any kind of conflicts because
Yes.
they kind of own the platform, and they know they own the platform.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Ben, this has been incredibly insightful. I knew when we came together, working together, and decided to bring our companies together, I knew that you guys were aces at this. Because I saw what you produced. I had no idea what's behind the scenes, and I still don't, but I have a much better idea after 10 minutes here. There's quite a bit to it. You really have to understand a lot of moving pieces and parts.
Let me take you into the sausage factory.
Yeah, there's a bit there. Now, that's not to say you couldn't figure it out and do it, but I think what I'm hearing is, look, there's certainly a DIY. It's not a big cost of entry. You follow these key pillars, and you could build a podcast and go all in and really, put something together that's going to get you your brand awareness that you need, get your voice heard, and bring demand generation, top of funnel people that want to hear more about what you have to say. That could theoretically become new clients or partners.
That's the idea.
So that's wonderful. So look, for founders here today, click on the QR code below. We will give you specifically the Proclaim 5 pillars to successful podcasting. And this is the secret sauce, as Celerant has 3 growth pillars. Proclaim has 5 key growth pillars for successful podcasting. This is the secret sauce that allows you as a founder and business owner to create a podcast property, an asset that will persistently bring you in front of your best audiences with your best foot forward in a way that really humanizes and connects, and is by far the leading channel to engage with your audience today.
Authenticity is everything.
Thanks again, founders and small business leaders. I'm Kenan Rappuchi on behalf of the Revenue Recipe Forecast with my guest today, flip the script, Ben Wiggins, exited founder of Proclaim, and now SVP of Corporate Development, Business Development and Partnerships with Celerant, and Chief Investor for a private family office. So he's in the mix, and a great guy to know if you want to get into podcasting. Thank you very much. Here's to your growth. See you next time.
If you're a founder or small business leader and you want to grow your brand, join us at the Secret to Scale event on December 9th. We will have a full podcast setup where you can record an episode of the Revenue Recipe Podcast live with us. Grab your spot by scanning the QR code on the screen or by clicking the link down in the description.